Hi, this is Leanne Hadley, and I'm so glad to see you tonight. Today, whenever you're meeting, we're going through this book, The Amen Effect, and tonight we're going to look at the part two of chapter uh, two, lesson two of chapter two. And it's really an interesting thing. This whole chapter is that we are not meant to be alone. And the first part of this chapter we talked about last week. You can go back and watch that video if you want. But we talked about how we were made to be helpmates for each other, to help each other at all times with all things. You're not supposed to be alone, you're supposed to have help. And so, but tonight, we're going to talk about this passage from Exodus 10, where Moses has to stretch his hand out and he causes a darkness to spread over Egypt. Listen to it. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Stretch out your hand towards the sky so that darkness spreads over Egypt, darkness that can be felt." So Moses stretched out his hand towards the sky, and total darkness covered all Egypt for 3 days. No one could see anyone else or move about for 3 days. Yet all the Israelites had light in the places where they lived. So the rabbis have discussed this a lot about what darkness is. So in this story, darkness is a darkness, but the rabbis and the midrash people always say, what else could it be besides just a dark night? Like, how dark was it? What does it mean when it says a darkness that can be felt? And there were 10 plagues leading up to the darkness. There were eight. There was water to blood, frogs, gnats, flies, livestock, boils, hail, locusts. By the time you get to darkness, you almost feel like God's having a merciful thing. Like, I won't make anything bad happen to them. It's going to be darkness. But um, the darkness, many of the rabbis say, was the worst plague because people could not see each other. When the flies are coming, the gnats are coming, we're all getting together saying, "What are you doing about the gnats? What are you doing about the flies?" Like we do in a catastrophe. But the darkness separates us. And that's why it caused so much suffering, because when we are separate, we suffer. So I want to read to you a couple of the quotes from the book, um, from different people on what they said the darkness might be. Um, the darkness that can be touched. Now, the meaning of the darkness that can be touched is that the Egyptians would actually be able to feel the darkness with their hands. The darkness would be so thick that neither a candle nor a fire could give off light. People could not see one another, neither by daylight or by candlelight. So, can you imagine a darkness in your own life, either real darkness or psychological darkness, where even a candle can't be felt? It doesn't break the darkness. All you can see, all you can feel is darkness, nothing else. Nobody is with you, and you can't even light a candle to shatter that darkness. That's profound darkness. That's what it means when it says darkness spread over Egypt, a darkness that can be felt. That's what aloneness is like. It's a darkness that can be felt. Another person, Eshkol Meramem, says, when a person cannot see anyone other than himself, or does not want to see anyone other than himself, then the whole world is encased in darkness. So when we become either so consumed with our own stuff, our pain, whatever, that we just go away in that cave and can't see people, or whether we choose not to see another person, refusing to see someone is total darkness. The next quote is by Evan Haezel. And this says, and this is what the rabbis meant when they said the darkness was the darkness was so thick it could be felt. He says it was as thick as coins. They were so busy running after their money, after their gold coins, strengthening themselves in their selfishness, that their eyes were darkened so that they couldn't see and they couldn't feel the pain of the Israelites around them. And then the last person, Harim is his name, says, this is the deepest darkness, when a person cannot even see his neighbor, and therefore he cannot be with any other person in her suffering and pain. When a person no longer feels the pain of his neighbor, he feels as though he is impotent, and therefore he sits by the pain idly. No one could get up from where they were. The pain was so deep that they had shut down. They did not stand up to help each other. I think there's a lot of pain like that causes us to just shut down. So you've heard a little bit about the darkness, and your questions for tonight are have you ever had someone, or have you yourself experienced a darkness as deep as this being described in this passage in Exodus? So discuss that question. And then the second question is, how can we then develop a practice of seeing each other with tenderness so that when someone is in total darkness, we can actually help them? We can be a light for them. How can we develop a practice of seeing each other with tenderness? And the other question is, have you or someone you love had an experience that resonates with the darkness that she's talking about tonight? Spend some time on those questions. And next week, let's read chapter 3, and I'll see you back here. Thanks so much.